Tariq from Youth Business Forum Dubai. And when I started this channel, I promised you that we will be soon starting a series of interview with the young entrepreneurs that can guide you like how you can be your own boss at a very young age. So today is the first episode of the interviews, series of interviews. So let us start today. We are starting our series with a very young entrepreneur. Her name is Maryam Khan. She started her entrepreneurial journey from Detroit, USA with a pop-up restaurant concept. I won't take much time because I would like you to hear from her how this idea came up to her, how she started, and then how she wants you to be your own boss at a very young age. What are the things that you can do? What are the steps that you can take without any financial support and without any looking up at the financial plans and all those stuff, how you can be a boss and how you can run your own business. So let us all meet today Maryam Khan. She is here with us.
Hello.
Hello, Maryam. So all over to you, Maryam, and I would like you to talk to our young entrepreneurs and let them know your concept of entrepreneurship. And you started it with a concept, of course, in every house, the first inspiration is from the food that is cooked at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be your inspiration too, that the things that in your surroundings. But later on, when you started the concept, what were the challenges that you faced? And when you started, what was in your mind that you have to start your own business? And how did it all come up? And what were the challenges and what were the solutions that you had to come up with? Over to you, Maryam.
So I started my business when I was 26. It came to me as an idea for something that I wanted to do for fun at first. It wasn't actually born as an idea as a business. I was at a point in my life where I wasn't sure what I was doing, what I wanted to do professionally, and I had a friend ask me, well, what are you passionate about? And I told him that I always had this dream of making the food that I grew up eating at home, but my version of it, because I grew up in a Pakistani household in America, so I was used to eating a lot of Pakistani food at home, but a lot of American food everywhere else. So I had this idea of blending the two foods together and serving it because this is what I ate myself and I thought it was fantastic. So we decided to do one pop-up for fun, but we invested a lot of time and intention into it. So we built an entirely new menu and eventually we had our pop-up. And it was extremely successful the first time, and we didn't anticipate any of the success. So because of that, we decided that we wanted to continue working off that success. It felt like it would have been wasted if we didn't continue going. So once we did a second one, the same place that we did the first one invited us back to do another one. We started getting calls from people in our local community of Detroit, which helps a lot. Having a local community was one of the most instrumental things that was an advocate of building a business. So it was easy for us to find avenues to do the pop-up, but a lot of challenges that presented themselves were, how do we keep up with this influx of new customers? How do we stay interesting? And it's a competitive market, the restaurant industry. Pop-ups are still within the restaurant industry. You're competing with everyone else who's serving food. So we had to think, how do we get creative? And for me, it came easily because I was making a product no one else was creating, and that's where I centered a lot of my focus. I just made sure that everything that I was doing was different from what everyone else is doing. I've always thought of this kind of a metaphor where there was, the quill and ink, and then eventually they made a pen, and they just improved a product that was already existing. And then on top of the pen, they made the pen cap, which improved something that was already existing. And then on top of the pen cap, someone made the click pen. So I kind of have always stuck to this mentality, which is almost in my mind like a lazy way of advancing yourself. But if you think about it, you're just becoming it's kind of like ingenuity in that sense. So when you have a product how can you build on it to make it something elevated and better? And that's kind of the methodology that I applied to what we were doing. Pakistani food already exists, American food already exists, but the two haven't existed together. So by putting that forward, a lot of people found it very interesting. It became like the talk of the town, and we started getting requests to come in at different event venues. I was lucky that I never had to reach out to anyone to ask if we could come pop up at their place. They were always reaching out to us. And luckily that's been the case since we started back in 2016, and I'm sorry, 2018. And that continues today. So those are some of the challenges that were presented, and that's kind of how I overcame them.
And how much capital did you have when you started it, and how much did you use the capital to start your own business?
None. I had no capital. I was just working for myself to pay my bills. I've been living on my own since I was 20, and so I've always just had at least 2 jobs to support myself so that I wouldn't have to rely on my parents. And so I had no capital. This wasn't something that like I said, I didn't plan it out. I just did it, and then because it was successful, that's when I started to actually make plans. After I did 2 or 3 of these is when I said to myself, okay, I need to have a business plan, a financial plan. I need to set money aside in order to keep growing this. And so eventually when we started creating a revenue or accumulating a revenue at a certain point, a percentage of that would get set aside. So of course, when you're making money, you want to keep some of that for yourself. You need to earn money to make a living and pay for things, but you should always set aside, if you can, 50% ideally, which is really hard sometimes because you need to keep supplementing your business and paying for things. The way that I was able to maintain that for the first year or 2 of the pop-up was by still maintaining a side job. It's kind of impossible to believe that as soon as you start a business, that's going to be all you're doing. That's not realistic in my mind, unless you have a lot of capital and you have an investor. That's different. That's not what I did. So what I did was just continue to work my day job, and then I would use that money to supplement my business. And then the money that I made through doing the pop-up, I would set aside half of that, and we would continue to use that in order to keep the business going, buy ingredients, products that we needed, everything.
So you totally negate the idea that you have to have a lot of capital to start something big. The young viewers who are listening to us and who have a dream and a goal in life, they can start up even from a small venture, and from there, whatever they are earning, they can keep on rolling the money and multiplying their income.
Absolutely. You just have to be smart with your income. You have to know how to save it. You have to know where to spend it. You have to create margins for yourself and live within those. Create percentages. How much am I spending? How much am I earning? And is there a balance between that? You never want to be spending more than you're making. If that's the case, then you need to reevaluate where you're going wrong, because the entire point of a business is that we want to make a revenue. A lot of the times, restaurants don't even see a revenue for the first 2 years. The pop-up model has been different because we don't have a lot of overhead, so we don't have to pay for the rent of a space. I don't have to pay for commercial equipment. A lot of places just invite us into their places, and there's kind of like an exchange where I come in and then I bring in an influx of new customers, and that's good for their business because now they have patrons who come and they're like, oh, I've never been to this place before, and they return in the future. So it's good for everyone. It's a symbiotic relationship, and so that's why that's been very positive for how I run my business.
And another very important question, Maryam, that mostly the parents still have this concept that the students should have a degree in their hand first, and then they should go into the practical life. As my point of view is that you should have a skill-based knowledge or skill-based education which can help you run your own business, or you can work anywhere of your interest. So in your opinion, how much education helps them to develop their business concept, and how far it can help them, and how much is it important, like if they do not have a degree, they won't be successful in life is there anything in your mind that can give them an idea that along with the skill-based education, how they can start their own business rather than waiting for a final degree and then searching for the jobs and all those stuff?
Absolutely. I like to think of myself as a number one example of someone who does not have a degree and is able to make a living and have a successful business, thankfully, so far. I did not complete my education, and for me, that's been a positive because I was able to accumulate so much experience working in the world, doing different jobs, and exposing myself to different business practices, having conversations with people, and learning through actually working rather than accumulating thousands of dollars in student debt. So I look at a lot of my peers, and a lot of us are either doing similar things, and a lot of them are actually working jobs that pay a little more and don't even utilize their degrees in order to pay off student debt. I currently have no debt, and so I feel like I'm living in a free world where I can pursue what I'm doing. And I know a lot of skill-based knowledge and education comes from obtaining a certification that you don't have to pay that much for, or you can just gain by having experiences in life. So my advice to those who are really committed to one thing and they have a concept is you don't have to get too wrapped up in getting a degree. Honestly, I think the pursuit of education is a beautiful thing, but where I live, it's a privilege. Not everyone can afford a college education, and even when you can, you don't use it half the time, and then you end up in debt forever and you have to get 3 different jobs just in order to pay it off. So I don't think that it's necessary at all. I honestly feel like it's kind of becoming as like secondary thought now. As we go more and more into the future, I'm seeing more pursuits that people have creatively and actually know how to build on their own. And in America, the education system is not the best. I mean, we have great schools, but the student debt that the amount that you have to pay to get an education and the amount of forgiveness you accumulate interest, it's just not such a great idea anymore. Obviously, certain things, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to school. But if you're trying to start your own business, focus on the skills that you need, and then practice those skills by having, if you have a secondary job, if you have like another source of income, make sure that you have practices in line with what you want to do in the future with your business so that you're constantly engaging in an environment of learning and teaching yourself things, because there's no experience that you can gain in school that you can't gain out in the world doing something yourself.
Thank you so much, Maryam. And one last question, especially for our youth and also for their parents, because both comes together when we talk about our surroundings. You see a lot of students, they are in a lot of pressure to get the grades because the pressure comes back from the family.
Right.
So I would definitely like you in the end to discuss the support that you got from your family and what kind of support the parents should give to their children, those who really want to build up their own business, and how they can support those children rather than discouraging them or rather than asking them to complete their degrees first. And what message you would like to give to those young people that who are there listening to you right now, that how can they just take the decision what they want to do in their life, and let the elders of their family or let their parents trust in themselves that yes, the decision that they took is right and they should support them.
I think you said it right there. It's really important for the parents, first of all, to trust the youth that they're completely capable. Because the second you start making someone think you're not capable, you have to do things a traditional way, it's going to impede them from actually doing something the right way. I think at least the background that I come from, that a lot of people come from, that I'm familiar with, it's Pakistani, and it's really common in our culture to either have the degree or get married. And if you don't do one of those two things, you can bring a lot of shame on the family easily. So it's very common that the parents put a lot of pressure on you to complete your degree and get married. But I think that by doing that, there's a lot of potential that just gets completely obliterated. So I think it's the responsibility of parents today and hopefully in the future to trust in their kids more, invest in the things that they show a natural inclination towards. You know, like at the end of the day, your child is going to live their life. They're going to grow up and do what they want to do regardless of what you wanted for them. So you might as well maintain a healthy relationship with them and actually invest in their own interests and help them grow organically into what they're doing rather than try to push your beliefs on them and push what you want to do. That's the best thing that my parents did for me. They didn't financially help me with this, and they would have if I had asked them 100%. If I had come to them and said, hey, I need money, I'm sure they would have helped me, because when I started doing this, I was so lucky that they were supportive. They were just proud of me for wanting to do something that related to my culture. But that's not always the case. That won't always be the case. It's not always going to be a supportive parent that wants you to pursue for example, if you make jewelry and that's your business, maybe your parents won't support you and, they won't give you money, but the way that they can support you is by understanding that this is something that you are committed to. And with that support, they can help you grow, because that gives you more confidence. When you have confidence, you're going to take more risks. And when you take more risks, you're going to have more positive outcomes. You're not going to have crazy positive outcomes without taking a risk. Nothing good came easy. And that's something that I have to remind myself whenever I have a challenge, is that nothing good came easy, but when you work hard, the reward is totally worth the struggle. So I'm hoping that with more and more people who are becoming independent, especially from our culture, that the parents are also becoming more aware of how much their children are capable of, and not restricting them as much, because they have these expectations that are unrealistic, and honestly, they're counterproductive to what we can actually accomplish when we're just given the freedom to do what we think we can do.
Thank you so much, Maryam, and I really appreciate, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your advice, and I'm sure that all of you must have learned a lot from this short interview. If the parents are listening this, I would definitely ask you to share the interview with your children so that they can learn how they can be confident and what ideas they can start with. And if the students or children are listening to this interview, I would definitely want you to share the link with your parents so that they can understand that how their child can do something different when other children are also doing around the world. And with that, we come to an end. And if you need more ideas about the pop-up restaurants and you need more info how it can be started, how it can be started in UAE or in any other place that you are living in, you are most welcome to get in touch with us. We are sharing the links in the description of the video, and there are links in bio on our Instagram and Facebook pages. So you are more than welcome to join us. And stay tuned, we'll be coming up with more exciting interviews of young entrepreneurs very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maryam.